Hey, Aharon Luke, Aslan's How Organics. This is a little bit about drip irrigation. I'm going to start with kind of like where I'm at and who my neighbors are. So here in Oregon, southeast Portland, a little further southeast than southeast, there is, Highway 224 goes to Timothy Lake up here. And we are right here in Eagle Creek area. So my farm is towards right here, 172nd, 272nd, and Quackenbush is right down here, about 10 minutes away. So Quackenbush is where, right here, they have, they're fully supporting themselves with their farm. I think they got a couple more hoop houses than this now, and they have some yurts back here for interns to stay in long term. So this is kind of like the goal we're going towards, is something that's well watered, doesn't have stress, can get as big as it needs to get. Potatoes, if you put more water on them when they're flowering on both sides, you're going to get more potatoes. So some basic intelligence about what needs what water and how much land you're going to be farming. Those are the beginnings of thinking about drip irrigation. So I've been working with Joseph. I saw in the Tanzania international trade business page here that water is currently one of the bottlenecks. Productivity is low. Vegetable productivity is low with modest progress over the past 2 decades. It is dominated by small holder farmers dependent on rainfall for irrigation. So next one up is, so this is the Netherlands development. They have a video here I wanted to show you. Okay.
Zile changamoto ambazo tulikuwa tunazipata hapo awali za kutumia mafuta mengi katika umwagiliaji, kutumia muda mwingi katika upalilia na vile vile kuokoa muda zilikuja kutatuliwa, wakaona kutusupport katika swala la drip irrigation, ambapo inatusaidia maji yanadondoka kwenye mmea peke yake, hayapotei maji. Vile vile hatutumii mafuta, tunatumia nishati ya jua. Kwa hiyo gharama zile za mafuta hazipo kwa sasa hivi, na inatusaidia sehemu ambayo maji hayadondoki, basi majani hayaoti. Hivyo pia inatupunguzia pia muda na gharama za kupalilia.
Zamani kina mama walikuwa wanashinda kufanya shughuli za shambani kwa sababu ya changamoto za maji. Ila kwa sasa hivi maji kwa kuwa yako karibu, wanafanya tu bila shida.
Hatutumii muda mrefu kuja kukaa shambani. Unaweza ukafungulia ukaenda nyumbani kufanya kazi zako zingine ukarudi kuja kufunga.
Mwanzoni kabisa tulikuwa tunajishughulisha tu na kilimo cha msimu. Kwa mwaka kwamba alikuwa navuna labda angalau 300,000 mpaka mwaka unaisha, nasubiri mwaka mwingine. Lakini kwa sasa tuna uhakika kila mwezi sio chini ya 300,000, ambao kila msimu tuna uhakika kuanzia milioni 1 kwenda juu. Maana yake sasa kwa mwaka tunalima zaidi ya misimu 4 au misimu 3.
Kazi yangu ni kung'olea majani nyanya pamoja na hizi hoho. Kwa wiki niking'olea kimaliza wananipa hela shilingi 5,000, 10,000. Wasingekuwepo vijana wa OI nisingepata hizi hela ninazopewa za kumhudumia mwanangu.
Kwa drip system ambazo zimefungwa pale zinaweza kukaa kuanzia miaka 4, 5 mpaka 6. Ukija kwenye pampu zile ambazo tumezifunga inaweza kukaa kuanzia miaka 13 mpaka 15. Sola zetu sisi kwa kweli niseme ni zile ambazo ni original kabisa. Kwa hiyo tunampa warranty kabisa kusema kwamba ile sola inaweza kukaa miaka 22 mpaka 25, inafanya kazi vizuri.
Okay, next up we have the actual like design of the system. So I just wanted to touch basically on what I'm currently doing. So this year I'm going to be I already got my main drip system. I'm going to be buying some drip tape, and so I would go to dripworks.com is where I've been purchasing stuff from, and immediately you have to decide between different thicknesses. So this is the 15 mil is the thickest, 8 mil and 6 mil is the thinnest. So you'd think that 6 mil would be cheaper, but what they do is they just give you more because they can wrap more on the roll. So you pay for more footage on the 6 mil. So if you go to the small stuff, they only have a 10,000 foot roll. If you go to the 15 mil, they have 1,000, 4,000, and 1,000 foot roll. So that's something to consider how much you want to put into it. Like 1,000 is about $100. 10,000 I think is around 300, right? 300, yeah. So there's a few things to consider when you're trying to size your drip. There's a lot of design considerations, but let's start with buying the proper drip tape. So some of the considerations are how big is your field? My field's a 1/4 acre. What kind of watering needs do you have? So you need to kind of count the number of drip tapes you're going to be putting down. So I think I already mentioned on potatoes, I'm going to be doing 1 row this year. I'm going to put drip tape on either side of it. And so that's a consideration. If you have squash, you're probably going to be putting a drip tape right down the middle. But then you might have 1 drip tape 4 feet either side, since squash kind of moves outward and should have water in more places than just at its root. But carrot is a root crop, so this one you could probably put 2 rows back to back with drip tape in between. Next step is like frequency, evaporation rate. If you're in a really hot spot, you're going to be doing more drip irrigation. You can look at there's maps that tell you what the evaporation rate is. How much water 1 inch per week will evaporate out of the soil, and you can work backwards to figure out how much water you have to put down to replace what's evaporating. You can also do it kind of trial and error by dripping and then checking to see how far it dried out, and adjusting the number of times you drip per week and the duration to get thoroughly soaked between the emitters. So I'm currently looking at a drip tape that has an 8-inch spacing between the emitters in the row. So I want to make sure that that whole row has water saturation before I call it quits, and it's as deep as possible. So that duration is what you're going for. And then as that evaporates, I'm looking at how often I have to do that per week. I'm currently watering 3 times per week, I think, for 3 hours in the middle of the night when nobody's using the water. That's probably overkill. You could probably get away with less, a couple times per week. I think I have drip tape that's maxing out my pump. So you don't want to max your pump out, because then you'll have some ends of your rows with drip tape will never get watered. So like in this example here, if your pump was, if you over extended with drip lines, your pump would, if your header's over here, your pump will never be able to get water down here, because all of these are taking water at the same time, and by the time you get to the end, there's no pressure, the water doesn't flow. But if you have high enough pressure, then you can run the system for as long as you need to and then stop it, and everything will get watered. So that's so having it be undersized so the pump has extra room to have some margin is important. So here's my little calculation. So my well and my pump in my well can pull out 22 gallons per minute. A lot of this stuff at the manufacturer here is gallons per hour. So you go down here, this is gallons per hour. Or you could do gallons per minute, but so this is a 8-inch and it lets the water out slower. It's called low flow and it's 20 gallons per hour. And so if I go back here, I know that I want 3,500 foot rows, and these are given at 100 foot. So it's linear. So if you go to 200 foot, you double this amount of water per hour, and that's at a given psi. So that's my house water is at 60 psi. I have to knock it down once the water gets out there, so I don't overpressure the drip and have it pop. So 35 rows, 100 foot. Each of those, if I use the 8-inch spacing low flow, then each of them are 20 gallons per hour. And so that is 700 gallons per hour, which is less than the 1,300 that I have capability of. So you want to make sure your total is some margin capacity less than this, so you have some reserves. If this was 1,400 gallons per hour, then some of my stuff wouldn't get watered. So I would like to have something with more narrow spacing, but those have higher flow that won't allow the water to get to all the plants. So I have to kind of do 8-inch spacing instead of 4, and then I have to have a little bit longer flow so I can get the entire row in between these 8 inches drenched. So we just went over pump ability. Header size, so from your pump to your drip garden, you need to have enough diameter of the pipe needs to be big enough to get all that water there. So this would be like so with something like this, a 1/4 acre, I can get away with a 1-inch PEX header. But the problem is if you do any overhead sprinkling, you have a lot of pressure reduction. So if I start at 60 at the pump, by the time I get to the field, I'm at 60, it's knocked down to like 40 because it's like, running full time, full bore, and then it loses like 10 psi at 1 inch. So by the time it gets to the field, it's like 30 or less, and so that's not enough pressure to do overhead sprinkling. So if you had a 2-inch here, it's surprising. This is like a PEX maybe or PVC, but this would probably be getting into like a PVC buried or on the ground, something that can like handle the solar aging. And so now if your pump is lugging down to 40 psi, this 2-inch only knocks it down like a fraction of a psi. So you'd still be at 40 or whatever your pump house is with a 2-inch losses on a 2-inch header. So yeah, this is larger than 1 inch. This is probably like a 2-inch header. They got some valves on here. This is like liquid tight, so they're clamping it down, and they might have like a taps off here. But 2-inch allows you to have the less pressure losses. All right. So get back on track here. So row length matters. If you look at the design here, if you want to have a larger row, let's say the 6 mil stuff, you can have up to a 460 foot row. So you have to kind of check to see the max row length for one drip tape line and make sure that lines up with kind of your hopes for how long your rows will be. And this assumes 0.4 inch connections. This is a larger connection to your header. This LSB stuff, this is like a 1/4 inch hole out of your header into each drip line, so that cuts your max drip line in half almost. And so this is a consideration as well. Budget, we talked about that. I would rather have, like, this is a better deal, but I don't want to spend that much money, so I'm going to just keep on checking the drip tape I do have, make sure it's working, and then replace whatever I need next year. And so I have chosen the 15 mil, 1,000 feet, 8-inch spacing, low flow at $100. So next up, we are Aslan's High Organics, and we want to support you as you get into adding drip to your farm in Tanzania. So talk to Joseph, get us your email. We'll get to know you, and see if we can send you some stuff, materials from DripWorks. Lastly, I wanted to mention Cot. So they're local in the southern part of Tanzania, and they have a public-private partnership that started in 2010, and their ultimate objective is to boost agricultural productivity, improve food security, reduce poverty, and ensure environmental sustainability through the commercialization of smallholder agriculture. So in the States, in America, we call that small diversified farming. So I'm an advocate of that. Oh yeah, so let me just show you my email address here. So my email is aharon@aslans-how-organics.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.